Introducing the ultimate seat cover, Tiger Tough. Proudly made in the US of A, waterproof and backed by an unconditional warranty. Yes, you heard it right. 2 years on vehicles and a lifetime guarantee on heavy equipment. They have you covered for manufacturer defects, normal wear and tear, and even those oh shit moments. Tiger Tough covers are meticulously crafted for a perfect fit with over 30,000 pre-fit designs, ensuring they stay in place without any shifting or sliding. Plus, they're even machine washable. Don't settle for less. Get a seat cover today that's built to last. Order today at tigertough.com/dirt. Get a free logo embroidery on your first order if you use the code DIRTBAG at checkout. Once received, show us your new badass seat covers with your logo and tag us. Experience durability and quality with Tiger Tough seat covers. Toughness guaranteed.
What's up, you dirtbags? My name is Luke Egebraten. We are back in studio. We got some cold ones going. Mr. Luke Payne, how's it going?
Good, brother. How are you doing? That is probably one of your most orthodox intros that we've had in a while. The last couple episodes, I feel like we've just been jumping into it. So,
dude, I know it's we had to get back to the good old intro. So I know it feels like we've been very we go in streaks. Like we'll record, we'll hammer out like 4 episodes. We'll get in a groove and it's awesome. And then all of a sudden you're busy. And then the 1 week you're available, I'm busy. And then it just kind of falls on its face. But I mean, that's part of it. And we knew that too. So we haven't missed an episode yet. So pretty pumped about that. But it's they're definitely more current episodes because we publish them basically right after we record.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I feel like if you have too many banked up, then they almost kind of lose. I don't want to say credibility, but they almost lose like that reality of what's now compared to what is then. You know, if we would have updated or uploaded some ones that we had maybe 6 weeks ago, I would have been like, I don't even remember those conversations, you know?
Yeah.
So I enjoy having them a little bit closer together.
Especially when people send us messages like on Instagram, they're like, oh, that was so great when you talked about this, or can you send me more info on this? I'm like, I don't even remember when we said that. And 100%. But the last few have been like, yeah, we recorded that last week and have been super helpful that way. And a lot of engagement too. I've noticed that's picked up quite a bit. People are a lot more active. I'm sure you noticed I got back into our Dirtbags Facebook group. That's kind of just been sitting there. I would post our short clips and things in there, but I kind of reinvigorated it. It's now more of a group where I'm inviting more people that are kind of listen to the show or in construction, but also now it's more free flowing of like people can help answer each other's questions, or like if they have advice or, you know, things they want to go through, we can do it there as well. So if you guys are interested and you want to join that group, just I guess I don't know how you do it. Just go on Facebook, type in the Dirtbags group, and then you can apply to jump in and we'll get you in there.
I've noticed that's been like brought back to life. I don't know. I don't get a whole lot of time on Facebook, but it was last night I was scrolling in bed. I'm like, when the hell were these posts?
Last week.
I'm like, oh, this was like 7 hours ago. And I'm like, what the hell? So Dude, it was fun to kind of see everybody's intros and what they do. And
yeah, man, we just had to dust it off. And I think what I did is I just invited a bunch of people that I was friends with that weren't in the group. And I think some people are thinking it's like a private, like boys club group. Yeah. I'm like, no, that's not it at all. We just,
the good old boys club, the Dirtbags boys club.
No. So we've just been busy and like haven't gotten in there, but it's cool to see like other people jumping in there now. Cause it's not just going to be you and I posting in there. I mean, that would be boring. So, so definitely super excited about that. And then, we've had more people. We have an ad read, of course, at the beginning of every episode for Tiger Tough. So more people are starting to reach out to them. They've added a few more divisions, which is exciting. So they've got their seat covers for trucks and then all their equipment, skid steers, all that kind of stuff. But then they just opened up one for tractors and then seat covers for side-by-sides. So it's hitting like all of our avenues here. So yep, all of the markets. And then they have a like a spot. If anyone buys like a seat cover at the end, it'll say like, how'd you hear about us? And there's a Dirtbags podcast little bubble. So I've been telling people like, hey, if you end up buying something, let them know you found them through us, because that really helps the sponsorship and all that stuff. And then obviously we got Lambert Insurance. They're in the middle of the episode, and anyone that needs an extra quote or is not getting what they need from their current insurance company, like obviously give him a shout. And he's been a day one supporter for a long time. So
absolutely, two really good sponsors, and happy to represent them. So
yeah, but other than that, I know we've got a massive guest, and so we had to pay a lot of money to his lawyers and his management team to get him on. So super excited to introduce the man that we've all been waiting to hear, Mr. Alex Parker from Parker Rock and Dirt. How we doing, dude?
How's it going, guys?
What's up, man? Thanks for taking some time with us today. We pushed this one back, what, twice?
Just once.
Was it once? I thought it was twice.
It took us almost a month just to figure out a date.
Yeah.
And then we pushed that date once.
Yeah, it took us a while. Luke had to be camping and
oh, come on now.
I think that was more my fault than anybody's, but no, thank you. Thanks for jumping on with us. And was it our last webinar, I believe? And that's where Alex, you kind of jumped in and you were talking about a scenario, and you brought up, I don't mean to kind of jump right into it, but I know you brought up, way to go, Luke, fucking tarps off, baby. Oh yeah, he's putting it on. I was curious. I'm like, what do we got?
I thought my camera was off.
Here? So I'm like, I did not sign up for this.
There we go.
What show are we into today?
Hell yeah. Luke, I lost my train of thought. Fuck.
Sorry, man.
Oh yeah, Alex, you were talking about kind of a scenario of what you do in your business on one of our webinars, and it just really intrigued Luke and I. Were like, we need to fucking get him on and talk about this, because there was a lot of people that had really fun. Like, hey, please talk to him. Please get him on. Please give us a roadmap of what this looks like. So
yeah, it's kind of something that surprises me isn't done more in the industry. I mean, so I'm going to go back a little bit. Some of you know, some of you don't. I was in the industry when I was like 14, 15 years old, working for other companies throughout high school, work release. And then out of high school, I went to work my first full-time job with an excavating company, one of the largest ones in Utah. And it got to where I'd been there 90 days. The guy that hired me was there, and I looked at my boss and I said, hey, he said at 90 days, I could get a raise. And he was like, okay, I'll go talk to him. And then at the moment, this is my first time asking for a raise, so I didn't really know anything about it or whatever. But at the moment, I was like, why are you talking to him to give me a raise? You're the one that I work for. Like, you see me, you can see what I'm worth and everything. So then go out my career, working at different places. And then I got into, 2008 hit, and that company sold out. I went into the oil field. The economy was disastrous. And in the oil field, I had been there like a month, went through 3 weeks of training, a week off, went into my first week of actual job site. And they sit me down in this computer lab, and they're like, we need you to learn this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay. And they say, when you learn this, you get a $2 an hour raise. When you learn this, you get a $1 an hour raise. And then when you learn this, you get what is labeled as a white hat, because you're no longer an entry-level employee. You know what is going on. And they said, when you do that, then you get like a $3 an hour raise. And I'm like, this is genius. In my first 2 weeks, I had given myself a $2 an hour raise because it was at like your own pace. It was like going to school at your own pace type of thing. I was able to give myself a degree in my time. I was able to give myself a raise. So I thought that was great. And that's a little more of how, I can't say the military runs, but like, you give yourself your promotions. It's not about just being there for X amount of years or whatever. You can do nothing, but you're there 10 years and you just get raises every year type of thing.
Yeah.
So the harder you work, the better you are. So then fast forward to starting our company, doing everything. And then we hired our first employee.
So when did you start? So you're in the oil fields, and then when did you start your company?
Okay. So I started, the oil field was 2010 to 2013. Was up in Grand Junction for about a year, and then went up to Williston, North Dakota for about 2 years, 2.5 years, somewhere in there.
Stomping grounds. Hell yeah.
Stomping grounds. Yep. Williston, Minot, that everything in between that long stretch. So was up there and honestly loved it, enjoyed it. The military, or not military, the oil field was very military mindseted. 2 weeks on, 1 week off. You got paid a lot. It was really hard, but if you were on a good crew, it was like building a family camaraderie. I still talk to some of the guys that I worked with, 10, 12 years ago.
Cool.
So it was a lot of fun. My wife got pregnant and I was just like, nope, I want to be a dad and I'm gonna go home. So came home, went back to work for a couple of companies and started back. Is different in construction versus being up there in North Dakota. I was in the oil field, but the last like 3 months of it, I'd actually got out and went to work for an excavating company up there. But that was still like oil field mindset. I mean, the oil field is just run. Like when times are good, you get as much done as you can, and knowing times are going to be, the price per barrel is going to be dropping here soon at some point.
Yeah. Who did you work for at the excavation company up in North Dakota?
Strata.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys probably know them. They're
R.I.P.
You wouldn't have wanted to work for them.
No, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure they're a great company. I've heard some very interesting stories about people that have worked there. So I can't summarize that with a company, but
it was very different because when I got there, they were just starting up the Williston division. And so they had like a project manager, a superintendent, and I went in as one of their lead foremen. And we did everything. There were some days I was putting fence work around one of their pits. There were some days I was working at their batch plant. And there were some days we were doing hazmat stuff. And then there were some days we were doing a water line down Main Street. It was small towned and everybody who worked there lived there. But to get any support was like, we'd go back to Minot to do our corporate meetings and you realize that it wasn't just a little mom and pop company you worked for. So the Williston side of things was nice. I didn't deal with Minot a whole lot.
Nice.
But yeah, they were huge.
Yeah.
Still a very big company.
Right. And then you go from North Dakota to Utah then, or how did you end up in Utah?
So I was born and raised here.
Gotcha.
So I worked for here, went to high school here. When the economy hit Utah just like everybody else. It was tough. Yeah. And when the oil boom started in Williston, I had a couple of good buddies of mine, their parents took their companies up there. The company I worked for who sold out, he pretty much sold his whole company. He actually went up to Williston and started a division. So it was.
Gotcha. And then, so Lachelle, your wife, she gets pregnant. You want to be a dad, and then you come back to Utah and then work for a couple companies and then start your company, Parker Rock and Dirt.
Yeah. So I worked for a couple of excavating companies, smaller ones around town, and they were just companies. We'll just say that they weren't very good management wise. I worked my way up to superintendent. I was one of 2 superintendents at the company. The owners were never really involved. One was a finance guy, and then the other one was supposed to be running the project or running the company, but at that time wasn't. And we were way overbooked with work, couldn't get enough employees, and I was pulling crews. I would start crews 4:30, 5 o'clock on one job, work till 1 or 2, and then go to another job and work till 8 o'clock at night just to keep jobs on schedule. And it burned a hole in everybody's soul. We were slowly dying and everybody hated it. So I got an opportunity to go up here to our local Hill Air Force Base, the Air Force Base here. And they offered me like $2 an hour less than what I was making. And I took it and ran. And then again, this is where this kind of ties back into it. I was up there but it's kind of the opposite to where up there, it doesn't matter how hard you work. You don't get a promotion. Well, you get a cost of living increase every year, but you don't get a promotion until years served. Mm-hmm. And I did not like that. I was up there constantly being like, oh, because I'm a go-getter. This industry, if you're in this industry long enough, you're a go-getter. You get a job, you achieve the job, you move on to the next one. Though up there, it's government, and the government doesn't run very well up there at all. To where I wouldn't get a promotion for 2 years, is what my boss said. Doesn't matter how hard you work, because this guy was here first. You won't become a lead for probably 5 years, and you won't become a supervisor for 12 to 15, because you either need time served, which is 15 years, or you need a master's degree in school. And I barely survived high school. And I was just like, I'm not saying I'm your best employee by any means, but I'm like, I know there's 2 guys over here that can't show up on time. You've wrote them up 5 different times, but because they're union, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And I want to grow within this organization, this industry or whatever. And he says, sorry, that's just how it is. So I left there. Well, I didn't leave there. I started my company as just a hobby. I'm like, oh, great, I'm going to start it. COVID hit. I was really nervous to see how COVID was going to kind of do. And it did opposite that I thought, and it exploded. And before I knew it, I was full-time. While being full-time up there, I'd work till 2:00 in the afternoon and then work till 8:00 at night. And I eventually got to a point where I was like, I can't do this no more. I'm going to take it full-time with the business.
Gotcha. And then when you went full-time in the business, was that a big jump, or was that just like, there's so much work that you guys were already doing that it was just kind of like you just cut off some fat, which was your full-time job?
Pretty much how it started. It was February, and I had a contract to dig like 22 homes in the subdivision, full utilities and everything. And I was getting to where the winter wasn't that bad. So the contractor was like, hey, I want all these done by the end of the year. And by this point, it's 2020. That's when housing is booming. I think it actually might have been 2019. So it was February 2021. So housing's booming by this point, and people can kind of see interest rates were ticking up. So I just kept working, and I started using all my leave. And my supervisor was like, hey, I think I asked for a Friday off so that I could work. And my supervisor was like, you're out of leave, but I can put you in leave without pay. And I'm like, well, the whole reason I'm here is for the benefits, the insurance, the leave, all that. If you put me on leave without pay, my job is safe, but I don't get the benefits. He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, let's just call it what it is. Friday's my last day. And that was like Tuesday. So I jumped full speed. And by that point, Lachelle, my wife, she was our first full-time employee. She was running all the books, doing all the insurance, all the legal stuff, all the office stuff before I even jumped full-time.
Right. Cool. So when you made that jump and Lachelle came in, she started full-time right away, was it? And so
before I went full-time, that's like how I couldn't do the office side of the business while up there at a computer, just because the firewalls and everything. You can't do anything but government work. And so I didn't have time to do the stuff. So I was even teaching her to do the estimating, and then she'd call me and say, well, what's the numbers for this? What's the numbers for that? And she'd send everything over, and we'd get awarded the job, and I'd get off at 2:00, and by 2:25, I was on the job site working.
Cool. Talk about a power partnership. Good for you guys.
Oh yeah, it's been great. And she grew up, her dad's a general contractor. And so she grew up doing all the books. So she knew what she was doing from the get-go.
Cool. How did you know? I'm going to kind of jump into some of the system stuff, but obviously, seeing your background, I'll start with this. So when you mentioned like almost like a scorecard system, you give yourself your own raise. These are the things you have to achieve to get that, correct? And then you mentioned the white hat. I'm familiar with that. I've heard that because that's what Ames does. You have different colored hats based on, what you are as far as like superiority levels. You have your managements, you have your superiors, your supervisors, whatever. It's funny. There's a guy, his name is Miles Montplaisir. I don't know if either of you know that name, but he's on my golf league. He's the Busch Light guy on TikTok.
Yeah, I know him.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, you guys like, oh, yeah, I know him. Yeah.
It's sad. I know that.
Yeah. So he's on my team for golf league. And we, every Tuesday we go play 9 holes against one of the other teams. And him and I were playing with each other the other night, and it was fun. We were really kind of diving into business because I'm like, he's really funny because like there would be guys out on the course and be like, how's that YouTube thing going? And he's like, great, making some money, having fun. And 2 minutes earlier, he was telling me about how he made a $2 million contract with, said company. I'm like, Jesus, good for you. But later that night, we were talking about kind of what he does. And it's really weird, but I've been like kind of mowing on this. How do we, import this into the construction space? But what they do, they have 10 different color hats. And basically, if they achieve something good, if they bring up a problem, they solve an issue, they find something internally that, could be fixed, or they find a different way to do something faster, whatever. There was a hot dog eating contest where the guy won. So they gave him, and what they use is stickers. They put stickers on these hats. And once your hat is completely full, then you upgrade, to your next color basically. And it's kind of like a cycle. And I was looking at him and I'm like, you're telling me that guys between the age of 28 and 35 are competing for different color hats and stickers? And he's like, yeah, man, you should try it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work in my industry, but it was really fun to listen, like how he kind of made like a camaraderie out of it. And that's what I thought of when you said the white hats, and almost like building a system to where everybody can buy in to where they understand like what that looks like. And he related it because he's like, Luke, what does the military do? I was like, I don't know. You get your badges. And he goes, and how highly respected are those badges? I said, very. And he goes, but at the end of the day, what are they? I'm like, well, I mean, that's kind of a double-edged sword, but they're badges. And, and he goes, that's right. They're Velcro. I'm like, fuck, you're onto something here, and so it was really fun to kind of listen to that. But again, diving into like the systems question, obviously, I feel like that's kind of what you've done with like your operator ones, your operator twos have kind of created that space for them to, here's what you have to achieve. Or if they do something well, hey, here's kind of the prerequisite of what you need to get to that second space or third space, whatever that might be. How did you know to do that? My question is, how did you know to do that when you were just starting out? Because we don't have that yet. We have like job descriptions and like basically it's kind of a trial by fire, like, hey, here's what you need to do, but there's going to be more things that come with it that we're going to need you to do as well. But how do you kind of create that roadmap? That was something I never knew how to do when I was starting,
Well, I don't know how I knew it at the time. It just like that very first job, I was like, why are you going to somebody who, to me, I'm just a number two, has no idea, and asking him for my raise? And then that one thing didn't anger me at the time. I just thought I'd go to my boss logically, and he would give me my raise. Yep. So then throughout the history of going everywhere, and I just started learning, especially in the oil field, like I can give myself my own raises type of thing. So then we get our company going full time, the wife and we hire our first employee, and I start talking to him, and I'm like, well, I want to create something. One, I want, as hard as it is, no one will work as hard as an owner or passionate about it. So I want to make people passionate about the company they work for. It's why, like Luke, I mean, every time you do a podcast, you're passionate because you're wearing the hats and shirts of people that you're talking to. I want that passion within our company. I mean, you go behind that door right there, and I got a shelf of probably like 30 different kinds of hats. And I just tell the guys, just take what you want. I mean, if I go through 100 hats in a week, yeah, we might have a little problem. There's a little bit of money there. But if your hat's dirty, just come grab a new one. I want you out in the field looking good. I want you to represent like who we are. Everything we do is logoed out because I want it to look good, but I want you to be passionate about what you're doing, because I love this industry. I love the dirt. I left it a couple different times, gotten into different industries. I'm passionate about this. I want everybody else to be as passionate as me. So I'm like, okay, how can I create that passion? Most everybody's driven by money. Okay. So how do we create the passion being driven by money? And then I created this system. On the flip side of it is eventually we're going to grow our business to where I'm not going to know that guy's name to his face. I'll know him on paper, but I don't want him to go to his boss and his boss go to the superintendent call me and say, hey, we got this laborer we hired a couple months ago. He's a pretty good kid. I think he deserves a raise. Okay, what do you think he's at? Well, I think he's at this dollar amount, but I think he's worth this dollar amount. Okay. And I've learned that if that laborer or operator or any of them doesn't get the gumption to ask for the raise, then they will just like coast under the radar and never get a raise because they didn't. If their boss isn't looking out for their best interest, then they want them to, or they won't get the raise. So I'm like, okay, when I hired my first employee, I sat down with my wife and I came up with this plan. I talked to a couple of big companies, said, what do you guys do? And it's like the old school mentality. They just ask their boss for a raise and it just works their way up to payroll. And we only have like 2 or 3 superintendents that are allowed to authorize the raise. Okay, but if that superintendent doesn't know that person, how does he get raised? Well, it's just how it is. Okay, all right, fine. So then I hired a first employee and I said, okay, how can I motivate you to better yourself, which in return will better the company? If they better themselves and they're passionate about what they do, they enjoy working at the company that they work at, then they're going to have fun, and it creates that team atmosphere of just coming to work, having fun, and everybody gets paid to do a job that they do. So I asked this guy, I'm like, so I'm going to hire you. At 90 days, I want to do a review, but this is what I want you to achieve, or I want you to show me if you can do it. He was a young kid, so I knew like I brought him in at an entry level and everything. He's like, okay. And then, but you need to remind me the 90 days. Just remind me 90 days. So then throughout the 90 days, I kind of created this mock-up test. Like, I'm going to see what he can do. And then at 90 days, he hit me and I'm like, okay, what can you do? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And he's like, well, I think I can. Show me.
And Alex, if you can give a couple examples of, can you do this? Like what type of examples was he doing there?
So he was entry level. He was at the time 19. And I'm like, well, can you set up the laser right? And I mean, like, I don't expect you to be able to read a grade stake, and I don't expect you to do it. What I expect you to understand is that laser is $800 to $2,500, depending on your rotating laser, that it's very expensive. Can you properly handle it? Can you set it on the tripod? Can you put the grade rod or the eye on the grade rod? And if you are great, can you, or not great, but if you understand, can you zero it out on a grade stake and know what that means? If you can handle that, then to me, you're no longer an entry level laborer. Then you are worth more. And then, so as it got going, he was here about 1.5 years, and then he was young, so he wanted to have fun in life. Was a bull rider and all this stuff. So he went and did some other things. And he actually just got back from North Dakota. He went up there all last winter and most of the summer and came back here as well. So I think I kind of put the idea of his head. And you want to make a lot of money, go up there, you'll understand it. Yeah. But so then it got to the point with, okay, I want to hire an operator. And I want to hire like a foreman, maybe another laborer. And this was all 2 years ago. And I'm like, well, how do I know? I would call my buddies around here that own excavating companies. How do I know what I'm hiring for? Well, can he operate? Well, I mean, I can put him in a trackle and I can know really quick if he can operate, but I won't know if he can dig around utilities. He's going to tell me he can, I had one guy tell me he could dig around utilities. The second week, it cost me $58,000 ripping out a 3-phase power pole that we had already crossed. We just had to go back and re-expose it. He knew it was there. Told me he'd dig around utilities. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to just hire people. Back again, this is 2022, 2023. I don't want to just hire people and throw money at someone who is not really worth it. I can't say not worth it, but I don't know what their skill set is.
Yeah.
So how do I create a quiz? I asked my buddies, like, what questions do you ask? And not really quiz, but how do I know where they sit? So created this, and this is like labor, operator, foreman, and this is just a printed out one. I've got hard book. But when someone calls me or when I get resumes and go through their resume, I already know based on their resume where I'm probably going to place them. Then I call them and start talking to them. And Luke, as you know, you can talk to keywords. You can just tell when someone kind of knows what they're doing. But then I asked my buddy, and I'm like, hey, what are you paying for a laborer, entry level? What are you paying for an operator? What is your skilled operators? What's your like foremans and superintendents? And he's like, I don't know. Well, I just hired a laborer 3 months ago at $18 an hour, and I just hired one yesterday at $21 an hour. But the skill set's the same? Well, yeah. What's that $18 an hour employee going to do when he finds out that the $21 an hour employee is making $3 an hour? And technically he knows more because he's been here for 3 months more. Like, you're going to create an animosity or whatever within your company because you're going all over the place. I don't necessarily care if my employees talk about what they're making because it's up to them to give themselves their raises based on what I have created.
All right, you dirtbags, we're going to take a quick break to thank one of our sponsors, Lambert Insurance Services. If you know Luke and I, you know we started this podcast to provide value to the construction industry. When we went to seek out an insurance company to work with, there's not a whole lot that are specific to the industry, and we really didn't want to work with a generalist agency, so we kind of put that on the back burner. Then we got to meet Sam Lambert. Sam is a fellow dirtbag himself. He's been in the industry for a long time, but he also started his insurance company in 2008 specifically for construction companies. So when we had that conversation, we knew that this would be the perfect match. So we started working with him, and he's been incredible. He leads first. He wants to be a resource first and an insurance agency second. They can help with provide general liability, workers' comp, commercial truck insurance, insurance for equipment, and so many more different avenues that he can provide coverage for. The great part about it is, they're licensed in most states, and they always quote through multiple companies, including Progressive Commercial Insurance. So that's how you know you can get a competitive rate. And even better, Sam, he's the owner. He wanted to provide his cell number just so if you have any questions, specifically from the dirtbags, you can always text him, give him a call, ask to compare plans, or just ask, what his rates would be, and then he can help direct you to the right place or answer your question from there. His number is 385-204-5799, or you can reach them at their website, which is lambert-ins.com. So reach out to him if you have any insurance questions. We're very excited about this partnership. Sam is an awesome guy, and we're just excited to continue providing value for all you dirtbags. So thank you, Lambert Insurance. Give him a text, shoot him a call, let him know that you're fans of the Dirtbags podcast. Let's get back to it.
That's once that hit, I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not, because I was a laborer there. No laborers talk, whether it's outside of work or not. You're not supposed to talk about what you make, but everybody does. Operators do, foremans do, everybody does. And in the oil field, that was never an issue, because whether that guy had been there 6 months or that guy had been there 3 years, but didn't want to do the computer work to get the raise, everybody knew what he made and what he made because of, I can't say the green hat, the white hat thing, but I think it was an EO 1, 2, 3, and then you were I can't remember. There were a pipe guy, 1, 2, 3, and then a supervisor. Like you just knew, okay, he was a supervisor 2. He made 180,000 a year. Supervisor 3 made 220 a year. But they gave themselves the raises. You know what I'm saying?
It's almost giving them something tangible. Right?
Yeah.
Here's your roadmap. Go follow it.
Here's your roadmap to succeed in this industry, in this company. It's all on you. The faster you catch on to, and in my opinion, I've got it kind of basic. The faster you do things, you come to me or your boss and say, hey, I feel like, and this is in every one of our employee handbooks, I feel like I can do this, this, and this. I've been here 2 weeks, but I feel like A, either hired me too low, or B, I have learned to get another $1 an hour raise. Okay. In 90 days, you can give yourself $3 an hour because maybe they brought you in lower and you've really proved that you can do it. And it's almost like a mini test, skills test, I guess. And you just show your supervisor. If your supervisor comes to me and says, hey, he can do this, this, and this. Okay, great. If you think he can do that, he gets $4 an hour raise this year because he can show he can do it.
Yeah. So Alex, if you can now zoom out a little bit, and with your system that you've implemented, if you can give kind of like the outline of starting from the bottom to the top and like what levels there are. And if you don't mind jumping into like the $1 per hour raise, just to give everyone listening, like this all sounds like a great idea, but like, where do you start and then where do you finish as far as like those positions?
Okay. So I've got labor 1, 2, 3. Labor 1, your kid fresh out of high school. He barely owns a pair of boots, that kind of stuff. But no judgment, but he's just your green kid. The dollar amount changes, in my opinion, where you're located. Phoenix might be hiring entry-level laborers at $22 an hour. Boston's going to be at $28 to $30 an hour because they're union. North Dakota, I have no idea what those guys are at. Minnesota, California, everywhere's going to be different. So don't take the dollar amount and think either A, I'm cheap, or B, I'm overpaying my employees, because I've talked to numerous excavating companies around here. Around here, I'm saying within 40 miles of everywhere I'm at, to see where they're hiring people at. $16 an hour is what I feel is a kid fresh out of high school. Yeah, you could probably go to McDonald's and make more money, but it's not a career. That's how I explain people. But again, at $16 an hour, so how I have it is $16 an hour, fresh starting out. What you need to know to get to operator level 2, know how to grease equipment, know how to like clean and use a grease gun. Keep it clean. I have all battery operated grease guns, so wipe them down when you put them back. Know where every greaser is at on a skid steer or a mini, because that's what you're probably going to be around on. At least in my company, those are on almost every job. You're going to learn that machine because that's probably going to be your first machine you're going to start operating. So I want you to learn how to maintain that machine. Greasers. And then so really, okay, that's it. This is the hardest part of every level that I've had for people wanting promotions. Show up on time every day for 30 days. They can come in and be like, oh yeah, I can grease every machine. Great. You've been late 3 times this week.
Yeah.
1 month. Do it for 1 month and I will give you $1 raise. If you're late 2 days after that, I'm not going to take your $1, but in order to get to that next level, that's what you're going to need to do. So then operator 2, set up a laser, rotating laser, pipe laser, know how to set it up. At that point, you've been around. Oh, and I also have like years of experience. So fresh labor, 0 months to 6 months. In those 6 months is what I feel you should learn how to be able to show up on time, grease a machine, clean a machine. Operator level 2 is between 1 year to 2 years, or labor level 2 is 1 year to 2 years. By that point, you'll be comfortable enough around the site where you can set up a rotating laser, or if you're on a pipe crew, you set up a pipe laser. Not just a matter of putting it on and turning it on. It's a matter of setting it up, knowing how to read the grade stakes, knowing how to set it up, knowing how to pull string line for curb and gutters, all that kind of stuff. Then you've kind of gotten into your running the skid steer, and that's maybe taking the bucket off, putting on the forks. All of our skid steers have sweepers, so at the end of the day, instead of punishing a laborer to sweep the road, you just take off the bucket, go hook up to the sweeper, just a couple hydraulic lines, and then you can run the sweeper up and down the road, keep it clean. That's where they start learning, because in my opinion, they've earned the right by keeping the machine clean and greasing the machine. They've earned the right to be in the machine. And that's where they start getting that seat time a little bit, get comfortable with it.
And Alex, to clarify, was that labor 2 or labor 3?
That's labor 2.
Gotcha.
That's labor 2. So that's where they start going. And that's what they need to know to bump to labor 3. And then show up on time for 30 days, late and on time every day, no damage to the equipment and no damage to the job site. So again, it gets them thinking cautiously, like, all right, I can start using this skid steer and I'm really excited, but I got to be aware of my surroundings when I'm backing down the road. We got backup cameras. Make sure there's not someone standing behind you. Or if you're scraping the road or something and you're next to a curb and gutter, don't bash into the curb and gutter and chip it all up to where we got to replace it. So that kind of stuff. So then I got labor level 3. And each one goes up. And this was actually last year. I haven't updated it for 2024, but each one goes up $1. So you show me those. You start out at 16. And then you're going to go up to 17 and then 18 by labor level 3. So level 3 is what you need to know. So if you learn that stuff, damage equipment, and you come to me and say, hey, I can run the skid steer, I can clean the skid steer, I can set up the rotating laser, and in a matter of 6 months, you're making $18 an hour. So now what you need to know to be able to get into operator 1. Get things set up without being tasked. I love my laborers right now. Foremans are so busy trying to think everything through the day, through the week. So a laborer that gets out and says, okay, today we're digging pipe. Let's get some shovels. Let's get the pipe laser out. I don't know what slope it's going to be at because I can't read the plans yet, but I know to put it in the pipe. I know to get the laser out, or the shovel. I know to get the pipe loop. I know to get the choker out. That kind of stuff. What you need to know to become an operator 1 is get things set up without being asked. The bigger one is check your oil and check your hydraulic, because you're not in a machine constantly, but now I'm starting to teach you how to be in a machine, get a little more seat time. So as a laborer, get there in the morning. The first thing you should do is when you're getting your tools out, but hey, tell the operator / foreman, hey, I'm going to go start the machine for you. While he's making sure nothing was broke overnight, he's getting with the site superintendent, making sure nothing changed overnight or whatever. They're still doing the same thing. So he's going to check the oil. He's going to check the hydraulic oil. He's going to do a walk around on the machine type of thing. He's going to turn it on, let it warm up type of thing. Just that kind of stuff. So make sure he can do those on your whatever machine you're working on, skid, mini, loader, track. And then again, back to it. On time, not being late, and show up every day for 30 days. That's the hardest thing that I've seen to struggle with. People come up to me and they're like, hey, I want this. Okay. 2 weeks ago, you were late. 1 month, and I will give you your raise. You can do it all. 1 month, on time, every day. I'll give you your raise.
You give any leniency as far as mistakes happen, or is it like, no, you've got an alarm clock, you can get here on time, the game plan, there shouldn't be anything? If there is something coming up, there's going to be communication before that.
If it's, hey, I got to take my son to the daycare, or hey, I'm gonna be an hour late, and you're letting me know, I'm not gonna hold that against them.
Yeah.
And I have a very, I don't, I want you to succeed because you want to succeed. Mm-hmm. So I tell my guys, if you're within 15 minutes of your start time, whether it's 7, 8, 6, whatever we decide, if you're within 15 minutes of it, I'm not going to hold it against you. Yep. Because all right, I slept in 5 minutes, or I went to bed, didn't realize I needed gas. Because at that point, every one of my guys, hey, I'm up. I forgot I needed gas, so I'm at the gas station real quick. Okay, that's fine. Oh, hey, my son was sick all night long. I'm going to be 10 minutes late just to make sure my wife's got him. Or the daycare's open. The daycare's going to take him. That kind of stuff. I'm pretty lackadaisical, or pretty easy when it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's more of the guys that are 45 minutes every day, live 2 blocks around the corner, and they still can't make it to the start time. You could have a 10 o'clock start time, and they would still be late. Those are the ones that I seem to have a problem.
For sure. No, and I get that. On the aspects of like raises, I'm curious about this. So you giving them the roadmap of like, here's how you can make more money. Show me that this is possible in your job duty, and here you go. How do you account for that in estimating? Do you have a certain dollar amount that you're like, this is just my labor, this covers me and then some, to my highest paid guy? Or, because we break everybody down as far as, because so many people have variables, we're figuring out what each individual costs us based on their overtime, based on their benefits, based on PTO time used, based on, how regularly they show up, things like that. And everybody's rate is different. We have a generalized labor rate, but those labor rates can go up because, again, we bid a lot of the stuff in January, February, March, but then come July, August, that's when they would be getting these raises. And, are those accounted for in your estimates? And how do you account for them?
Yeah, they're, to a point they are. I am in a weird spot with our company because we're still smaller. That, I mean, I don't look about you, but the hardest part about the industry, in my opinion, is employees. I can go buy any machine I want. Yep. And I just turned down a 3-month project because I didn't have the employees to fill for that project. The guy was like, we're not going to do this. So, or we're not going with this other contractor. You were the second bid. We want you to do the work. Can you start in 2 weeks? And I said, no, I'm booked out till November. If I had the employees, those jobs, at least for me, always seem to come up. Those last minute, we just need it done. Maybe because I was blessed to be to start in a good economy, went through a great economy, things have leveled out. I haven't witnessed a bad economy in our company, at least. No. So I haven't had to worry so much about that. But with our growth year over year, a lot of it has been because of self-promotion. Mm-hmm. So I look at it as I've got enough work for all of our guys. If I've got a laborer or an operator that's showing he wants to be a foreman, and then a job comes up that's last minute, that's going to be his kind of test. Be like, hey, it's a 2-week, 3-week project, nothing super crazy, not moving millions of cubic yards, not laying tens of thousands of feet of pipe. It's a simple job. Let's go see what you can do with it. You've been working your way up. Great. Then he starts doing pretty good. Then I'm like, great. Now it's more work that I can bid because now I've got another foreman that has self-promoted his way up within the company.
Yeah. So it's almost like kind of like a preset incidental, basically, I would assume, probably within your estimates, right?
Yes.
It's just the cost of doing business. Hey, it's going to come up.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. No, and that's a good way to do it too. We're getting to a point to where we have, 20 different projects going on at the same time. And where we're at, we need our metrics met based on those bids. If one crew is slacking, we can see that based on the metric points. And then that also helps instill, company growth, job growth, incentive growth, things like that. So I would say be aware of that now, but also enjoy it at the same time, because it is fun to where you're like, hey, we made $4,000 additional on this project. I'm going to hold that back, whatever, but it's going to get dispersed in raises. I know those are coming, things like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, we're not quite to that point where I got to stress about it and I got to micromanage it, but I know it's coming.
Yep.
And I think when we get to that point, I'm going to have to figure something else out. Like you said, how to still self-promote within the employee.
I still think you can self-promote. I think the descriptions and the requirements get more detailed because there's things that you probably go through that you're like, fuck, they should know this on this type of job site. That's going to be a requirement. But where you are now, you wouldn't know that until you actually are physically in that situation,
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's just kind of an ever-changing document.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah. And what's really cool about it is I'm witnessing it firsthand. So I get this phone call late July last year from a home builder that I know really well. He says, "Hey, I got this kid. Green is green, 18 years old. The way he runs his business is he needs everybody to be able to drive. He just has a lot of company vehicles. One day you're going to be over at this house grading. He does everything in-house. So one day you're going to be over here. I need you to be able to load up the skid steer and take it over here and grade here or this rock wall." Like everybody drives in his company. And he couldn't drive. He was 18. Insurances won't let him be on his insurance. He calls me up and says, "Great kid, I can't do anything with him. So I will keep him until he finds a job, but are you looking?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, well, I mean, I could use another laborer. Am I really looking? No, but if it comes highly recommended from you, yeah, I'll bring him on board and we'll see what he does." Gets here, green is green, brought him on as an entry level guy, July of last year. He is now, he doesn't know this yet, but he is getting $1 an hour raise tomorrow because this kid is that kid. Every day he has shown up late twice in the almost year he's been here, and it was 5 minutes, and he was apologetic. And we kind of have this unspoken rule: if you're late more than 15 minutes, you buy the crew donuts. And he was 5 minutes late and brought everybody donuts on the job site those 2 days. Just great kid. Calls me up, and I've noticed this the last month and a half. We're getting into the peak of our busy season. Now's the time to start learning it. Calls me up and he goes, "Hey, can I start staying late?" "Sure, as long as there's work for you to do." I'm like, "Sure." So there's been a little bit here and there. There's been a couple of days, where he hasn't been able to. Then today he calls me. That's why I was a little late getting on. Today he calls me up and says, "Hey, our foreman had to cut out a little early. We're working 410s this week, taking Thursday off. The foreman had to cut out a little early because he had to go to a dentist appointment. He's like, 'Do you mind if I stay here and run the mini and cut curb and gutters grades?'" He didn't know this, but I tested him. I'm like, "Well, you got your laser set up?" "Oh, yeah. I've already got the laser set up, and I walked through it with John. The string line's all set to grade. I double checked it. So you're just cutting subgrade?" "Yeah." "Okay.
Go for it.
Worst case, he's a couple inches low, a couple inches high. We can fix that really quick in a matter of seconds in the morning." And it was only a couple 100 feet that he was working on. And we're like 3 weeks ahead of schedule. So I'm not super. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to drive over to the job. It's 4:30 and I'm just going to see. So I go and I just kind of roll around the corner and I can see him and he's angry because he's doing this with the grade.
He's waving. Hell yeah.
But he's eager to learn. So I come around the corner and I'm like, "How's it going?" And he's frustrated because he's used to seeing good operators and they make it seem so simple. And he's like, "How do you guys do it?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's just a matter of time." And like, I can give you little pointers of just feeling it in your fingers, feeling it in your joysticks, and feeling it in the rocks, feeling the grade. But it's just a matter of time. But as I'm like, "Kate, just keep going. Like, just dig it. We've got like a 1 foot cut to get the subgrade. Just dig it and make a big stockpile. We'll get the trucks here tomorrow and load it all off." I'm like, "All right." I'll walk around the corner with the superintendent, and you can literally see in about 150 feet where he started, it's doing this plus or minus 4 inches. And by the time he's getting to where he's at, he's probably plus or minus 2 inches. And I'm like, he's getting it. Like he's truly getting it. And he hasn't once asked me for the raise. But I know where he's at. And he's probably doing it. He just turned 19. He's probably doing it for the money. Mm-hmm. But it's the challenge. Some people want that challenge. They just want to be better. They don't want to be a laborer greasing equipment for their whole life. They want that next level, the next level, the next level. So when I hire everybody, like I said, this is in our employee handbook, the very last few pages. You give yourselves a raise. Take the employee handbook home. Look at that every couple of months. If you feel like you achieve it and I'm not on that job or whatever, talk to your foreman. He'll talk to me. He'll quiz you a little bit. He'll bring out the employee handbook and say, all right, yep, you can't do it. Let's get you $2 an hour raise because we forgot the last step 2 or 3 months ago or whatever.
Hell yeah. It's fun to see that has that drive and just motivation is like, I'm going to fucking get it.
Exactly.
And it just slowly improves and you'll know it'll be a really good dude.
And like I said, we're ahead of schedule. So now I've got my 88 on that job, but I've also got one of my 220s just sitting there. And I'm like, okay, well, he knows the controls. Is he going to be efficient at loading trucks? Mm-hmm. Probably not. But right now we're 3 weeks ahead of schedule on this project. So I'm willing to negotiate on the efficiency. So now, instead of him being a laborer on another job, tomorrow I'm sending one of our trucks over there and he's going to be the one loading the truck. He doesn't know this yet. When he comes in the office and I line him out, I'm like, you're going to go to the job and you already know how to check the oil. You know what a low hydraulic oil looks like, low engine oil, all of that. Do your walk around the machine. We have brooms in all of our equipment and each one of our company trucks has vacuums, little DeWalt vacuums. He keeps everything clean. We've got glass cleaner. He's always wiping it down if we're waiting. So he, in my opinion, has earned that right to get the seat time. I'm like, hey, you're not walking up and down massive piles. You're just going to sit there and load. I got 8 loads of pure sand that's just in a pile that he piled up from cutting curb and gutter. He's just going to load it up and load it onto the truck. And I'm going to tell the truck driver, is he going to load you in 3 minutes? No, he's probably going to be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. But that's how you get that next generation excited. And he's 19. So when he's 22, 23, if he keeps going at this pace, he'll be one of my foremen running jobs. And he's going to have a bunch of 18-year-olds underneath him that he's going to be like, I was you. I was just there. This will work. You just got to learn everything I'm teaching you.
What's the importance of really painting the picture of what a good foreman is too, right? Mm-hmm. Because if he's got a really good one on site, he's going to know like, hey, I know a lot of this stuff because of the guy above me. And if there's guys below me at some point, I want them saying that about me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to have a conversation.
Hell yeah. How many guys do you have now?
We are 5 full-time. We got 1 part-time. He works for a refinery. I've been trying to get him to come work with us full-time, but he makes too much money, has too great a benefits. So on his days off, he just does it, comes over and plays in the equipment.
Hell yeah. Well, it's good to have the extra help. And, if something doesn't get done, you can rely on him. Say, hey, 4:30, here's what I got for you. Get it done if you can. Perfect.
We do a little bit of residential. Most of our work is commercial, but there's also a little niche in this area for some reason that water lines for homeowners and sewer lines, not a lot of companies do fix them. And the ones that do them are charging arm and a leg to do it. And I've worked our numbers down with a couple of our plumber. We've got some good plumber friends. And they're like, we get all the phone calls, but we don't have the equipment, or we don't have the guys that can dig around a gas line, a fiber line, a power line to run a water line. So that's what we do that on the side quite a bit. And that's what he helps me do. So I'll be like, hey, what are you working next week? Tuesday, Wednesday? All right, I got a water line over here and I got a sewer line. Or I got 1 sewer line going out in the street. It's going to take 3 days. You do the first 2 days and I'll do the 3rd day. Like, that's what I use that guy.
Cool. Oh, it's fun to have those people in your back pocket.
Yep. The best part about it, we have fun doing everything.
Yeah, there you go.
We can't have fun doing it. There's no point doing it.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed too when you were talking that I thought was really cool, and I think shows that it does start at the top as well. Of, you're not upset about paying somebody on your team more, where a lot of leaders, they might resent that. They might, obviously payroll stresses a lot of business owners out, but you're looking at it from the other viewpoint of like, this young guy is helping us build our company, build our vision. Like, I'm excited to pay him more tomorrow. I'm excited to push him to that next level up. And Luke, like you mentioned, help paint that picture for him. But sometimes, like, painting the picture can sound like this creative, beautiful thing, but sometimes you have to write it down. Like, your job description is this. If you want to get to this, this is what you need to do. And I think we're all kind of overcomplicating it sometimes, and you just need to simplify it and have it in your handbook. Write it down for somebody so they can go look to see, how do I get to step B to step C? How do I make this a career for myself?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Call it the Bob Ross. Paint the undeniable picture, right?
He give him a tree. He needs a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he needs a friend. Here's a little tree, whatever the fuck he says. But
yeah.
oh, that's awesome.
It's
hell yeah, man.
It's one thing I've started. I mean, with our name, it's Parker Rockenberg. When people are like, "What are you going to create your business? What's your name going to be?" I'm like, I don't know, but I don't want to be just another excavating company. I don't want to be Parker Excavation because there's 100 excavating companies around. I want to be different. And I've tried to be in all facets of the industry, and in our industry, different. We've got GPS on almost everything. We've got rovers. There's a big expense at a small company, but there's large companies around here that still don't run GPS or will buy a machine that has it and disable it because none of their guys know how to run it. So
it doesn't make sense at that point. Lack of training.
Yeah. To me, it's the old school mentality, and it goes back to handing out raises.
Yeah,
the way they did it then, it can be changed. Just got to figure out how to do it.
Yeah,
I've learned that it's not always about the money too. We're not afraid to pay guys, but there's some people that just are not motivated by money, which is very tough for like a business owner. Alex, I'm sure you understand. Luke, you probably don't understand this because you're not as greedy as I am. You're stingy.
That's fair.
But like, I know a couple of guys that have come and worked for us, and you try to motivate them by money somehow, but they're like, cool, oh, you get paid more going here. Doesn't really interest me. I'm like, wait a minute, like, did you hear me right? It's almost like, but then you're almost like implying or putting yourself in their shoes and assuming that they think the same as you, which I've learned you can't do that. But I would say 90% of the people are motivated by money.
I would say that. And one of our guys, ex-military, has a retirement. I can't say he's not motivated by money, but he's told me, Alex, I don't need the raise. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to leave you as long as you respect me. As long as you respect me as the person, I don't need the money as much as I just want to work somewhere that's respected, which is great. And the other thing about it too is, Luke, I mean, even Luke, you know as well, every company needs that employee in that position. So instead of forcing employees to be in a position that they don't want, if they're happy, if their skill set, like my dad told me, some guys will never be foremen because they can't see the forest through the trees. Mm-hmm. They will see the tree, they will see the task at hand, but they can't see the 6-month schedule and how to achieve everything to get the project done. He said, you can't force that on people. So, and the flip side of things, this promotion skill set might not be the greatest because it's like you're going to go up until you can force yourself to be that foreman or that superintendent level 2, and you just won't get it. That doesn't mean you're never going to get a raise, because we give raises every year just as like a cost of living increase. Because, I mean, I can't have you at $20 an hour for the next 30 years of your life because you're literally working yourself into a trench because you're going to die here because you can't financially afford anything else.
Yeah, you want to build a company that supports everybody in their dreams.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And you just, I don't know. Every company needs every employee. You just got to find a position for that employee, figure out what they're good at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Luke, I'm curious to hear your take on all of this because, like you mentioned, you don't have a system like that, but I think you've done a great job of, for one, like selling the vision of like, we are a different company than just going somewhere else, making another buck an hour. So like, what is your take on all of it? And then is there anything you're going to implement this year, next year?
We've got a lot of things that we'll implement, and it's cool because we're always learning, right, Alex? I'm sure like something different project comes up and you learn something new from this project. You're like, okay, I'm gonna make a mental note of this for a situation that might come up in the future that I might have made a mistake here, but now I understand it a little bit deeper. Our biggest thing is we're going to be implementing a lot more like job roles and really holding people to their job roles, because right now we're still, I don't want to say everybody's all over the place, but it's like if you see something that needs to get done, do it, but now it's kind of like, okay, where's the compliance with making sure it did get done? So that's where it falls back into the job roles. Also implementing, we're going to try, a different bidding way this year to really help incentivize guys with different things at your end. Again, that really comes into dialing our numbers down a little bit more, figuring out our cost per hour on every possible thing that we can. And then starting from that top down, instilling like, hey, if we beat these metrics, here's what we've got, here's what we can do. So I always tell guys, I said, build the company that you would want someday. Because I tell everybody, this isn't a forever company for me. Am I gonna be a part of it forever? Absolutely. But I would love for somebody in that company to take my spot. I don't know what that looks like, whether it's an ESOP, whether it's phantom equity, I don't know. But I want people to build it because I'm sure there's people that have opportunities to maybe start their own. Great. I would never want to talk somebody out of starting their own company. But if you've already invested so much of your time into a company, what can that company do for you so they can retain you, so they can make it worth your time, to where maybe you can eliminate some of the headaches for those guys? Because I'll tell you, I have headaches fucking every day, and there's some days where everybody probably wants to pull their hair out. So how can I eliminate that to hopefully fast track your dreams a little bit more with some sort of company ownership? That's where my mind goes right now, as far as what we want to implement, and then looking, that 6-10, hopefully not that long, hopefully not even that long, hopefully, 5 to 8 year outlook. What does that look like? What do we need to do to accomplish those things? So.
Yeah. I mean, Luke, I think the way you look at it is fascinating because I think the same way. I'm like, I don't want to ever be the only owner of the company. And that doesn't mean equity or anything like that. That's not what that means, but the only person making the ownership decisions. Like, I want there to be a full-on leadership team of people treating this like their own. One thing that I've found that can be advantageous if you don't want to give out equity is paying your leadership team off your net profits. Mm-hmm. And so they get paid like an owner. They don't have the risk from owning the equity, and the owner, him or herself, keeps the equity that they started the company. So I've heard that's a popular model as well, of like, yeah, that could potentially be a great path for you, because then you can get paid off of how you build this business and how you help manage this business. And, but then it goes to the question too, of like, if they're not incentivized by money, like that's okay, but what else can we incentivize them by? Maybe it's their time.
Yep. Yeah. Time is huge.
Kind of funny you brought that up, Luke. I actually created that late, like December of last year, as a profit sharing thing, and did it with a couple of our employees, not a couple, all of them. And I'm going to see how it does this year. But it was more or less like, depending on each level, you get a percentage of the profit based on profitability of the company and profitability on the jobs you were at. Because, like you said earlier, Luke, you can look at your crews, and one pipe crew is sinking really well, and they can dig and lay a couple 500, 800 feet a day, and another crew isn't. but they also might be running into utilities. So is it based on the unknown factors of what is in the ground that you didn't take into consideration? They had to dig around. You're in an area that's 100 years old and there's 7 different gas lines and nobody knows which one's live, which one's dead, whatnot. You're adjusting flows accordingly. And then also the estimator. Did he straight out just cause you to lose the job the day you started the project? Because I've had that before where the guy's like, we're down $200,000 from day one because I didn't consider the over-X.
Yep.
So it can't be a punishment of everybody, but at the same time, everybody gets rewarded as a company as a whole.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of really intrigued to see how it works out this year, because I've talked to the employees that were here last year, or not talked to them, but I've heard them talk to the other employees about kind of the bonus system, and they're like, yeah, it works really well, and if it helps them telling the new employees, it helps you just remember and be methodical of everything you're doing. That instead of just quickly backfilling around the building and taking the bucket and smashing the corner, and now we got to bring in a specialist to dowel and to form it up just right so that they will approve it and not have to rip out all the concrete and redo it all, anywhere from $500 to tens of thousands of dollars. Little things like that, it makes you just methodically do your job. I always say, do it efficiently and do it methodically, not in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Want to do things in a hurry, but if we got to come back and fix it, it doesn't matter how much money we made at the project, because now we're going back 7 different times and constantly fixing things.
Yeah, then there's no money to be made.
And there's no money, exactly. So let's just do it right the first time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And Alex, I think what's really cool about the way you're kind of structuring how you pay people and how you're just being so transparent is what that can help with is, for one, it cools the jets on people asking for raises. It's like there's a system in place that you can go get a raise. Here it is. It's in your handbook. But the second thing is that when it comes to entitlement, I feel like that can diminish that quite a bit, because like you said, even with the profit sharing, it's like, yeah, there's no profit to share. And like, here's the formula. Like if you're in this category and we have X profit, this category makes this percent of that. And why didn't we make as much? Well, here were some of the lost profit that we had on these jobs that, we had damage or whatever it might be. So it also helps them kind of think of it like a business owner, which I know a lot of employees don't think of it like that. And so that can help them take a little bit more of that ownership, which I feel like gets rid of some of that entitlement as well, of just like, well, we need to run a cleaner business. Then it's like, yes, let's keep this going. We want everyone to be paid, especially on the bonus end.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So when I created the bonus last year, I said, not only do I want people bonus, but how do you motivate people to work? Money. How do I motivate people on a bonus system? So when I created it, it's like a point percentage type thing, but it's all based on hours worked. So you work here 1 month, you're going to get a bonus because you've got 160 hours if you work 40 hours a week type of thing. You're going to get a bonus depending on where you're at labor, at the different tiered system. It might be higher bonus than others. I had a guy I hired last year. It was late October, and I handed him a $700 bonus, and he cried. He's like, I couldn't afford Christmas. You just gave my kids a Christmas, and I was not expecting this. And I'm like, you're human. You work for our company. You showed up every day on time. For every hour you worked, you got $1 or a percentage. I can't say $1, but a percentage of that profit. One of my guys, he was here all last year. I hired him couple 2 years ago, and he was shocked. I handed him a $9,000 bonus, and he was like, "What's this for?" And I was just like, "Well, according to my bonus system, that's how much you got for every hour you worked, and the tiered system that you got." And he was just like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm like, "Yeah, like when we as a team make money, everybody makes money. We as a team lose money, everybody loses money. So let's try not to lose money."
Yeah, no bonuses.
Yeah, no bonuses. It's plain and simple fact. But also, it's a matter of work. Every hour, we keep track of where you clock in and out. We know every to the minute. Every hour you work, you got a bonus percentage. We won't know what that is until at the end of the year, but you got something. So how do you motivate employees to want to work 8-10 hours a day? Show up on time.
Yeah. And Luke, the last thing I want to say on this too is winners want to work with winners. Yep. If your company is just stagnant, it's kind of just, you're penny pinching. Nobody is really going to want to work there. If you guys are crushing your goals and you're motivating others and you guys are growing as a company and you guys are winners, you're going to attract other thoroughbreds and other winners to your company.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Other people start talking, and before you know it, you get phone calls. Hey, you guys looking for an operator? Not right now, but give me a resume and I'll set it on the stack of everybody else so that when we are, I call you.
Fucking pick of the litter, baby.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of scraping out the barrel.
Yeah, no shit. No shit.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. Well, no, thank you for your insight on it. And it's cool I'm anxious to follow along with your tier system as you grow and how you kind of change things throughout it and what comes up. So you'll have to keep us updated on that.
As crazy as it sounds, I'm excited to change it.
Absolutely. Well, you
have to change it.
You should be, yeah.
Yeah. And Alex, that's a great point as we wrap up here. This isn't a set it and forget it type of thing. This is always a living, breathing document, a system, something that needs to be torn apart and built up again and always be changing. So don't just take Alex's advice and set it and don't do anything with it. This doesn't work for every single company and you need to build your own. But if you have questions, you can, find Alex on Instagram, Parker Rock and Dirt. Obviously you can always ask Luke and I. We can go through questions on any Q&A podcast, but Alex, yeah, dude, what an episode. Like, thank you for diving into that because I know that people listening are they wanted more when you started talking about it. And so I'm just glad we cranked out an entire hour of an episode diving into it for them.
Yeah, I for sure wasn't. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make this last an hour. It'll be like 10, 15 minutes. But yeah, it worked out.
Conversation flows, man.
Like Luke said, if anybody's got any questions, I created it because I wanted it, but I'm not going to hide it from everybody. Just ask them. Oh, yeah. Biggest thing is create a personality within your company. You can put the tiered system in, but if you don't have a personality in your company, it will fail.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. All right, man. Well, we appreciate it. Luke, always good to see you, man. And can't wait to see you guys on the next one.
See you, boys.
See you guys.